The complete history of the Psycho Rangers, Power Rangers' most terrifying evil duplicates. An evil doppelganger is a common trope seen in shows, especially fantasy or science fiction movies or TV series. But no evil group of doppelgangers in any TV series or movie has the reputation the Psycho Rangers have for being one of the most dangerous threats the Power Rangers have faced in their careers. Their threatening presence in the story resulted in their reappearance throughout the franchise, from shows to comic books, all of which recognize and portray them as the dangerous foes they are. With this video, I wanted to talk a bit more about their origins, how the creators of the series used them to build a sense of dread, and how their stories were continued in modern-day Power Rangers shows and comic books. Where did the Psycho Rangers first appear, and why are they different from every evil team before them? It started like every other episode, with the Power Rangers in their civilian attire enjoying an ice cream, when suddenly on the news they saw that an attack had taken place. More mysteriously, the news reporter also says that the Power Rangers had appeared to help them. Indeed, as we see the news footage, we see a shot of what appears to be the Power Rangers slowly making their way up to the attacked building and the civilians there. However, when the news reporter asks them a question, we only see the Red Ranger slowly extend his hand and reach for his laser pistol. As the news reporter and cameraman slowly become more suspicious, all 5 Power Rangers pull out their pistols and start blasting indiscriminately, leading the civilians to run away in fear. Around this time, the real Power Rangers show up, at which the fake Power Rangers reveal their true identities. They are the Psycho Rangers, creatures created for the specific purpose of defeating the Power Rangers. Each colored Psycho Ranger was built using data of the corresponding color Power Rangers' fighting style to exploit the weaknesses of their fighting styles in single combat. And in that first combat between the two groups, it's immediately apparent how outclassed the Power Rangers are. Each Ranger is isolated and split apart so that they are all forced to fight their own colored counterparts by themselves, where they discover how the Psycho Rangers counter their fighting styles. It is the eventual intervention of Zane, the Silver Power Ranger, that lets the Power Rangers hold their ground, only for the Psycho Rangers to mysteriously disappear from combat. This is the first impression both the Power Rangers and we, the audience, get about the Psycho Rangers, and it is quite the first impression. They're introduced in the season Power Rangers in Space in the episode Rangers Gone Psycho, as creations of Astronema, right-hand woman to the Dark Overlord Dark Spectre. Power Rangers in Space is based on the Japanese series Denji Sentai Mega Ranger, with the Psycho Rangers being based on the Neji Rangers from that same series. Their ruthlessness and effectiveness immediately set them as one of the stronger foes the Power Rangers have fought so far. Their appearance lacked the humor and lightheartedness one would usually find in a Power Rangers villain of the week. This makes their otherwise cheesy opening statement, "We're faster than you, smarter than you, stronger than you, but we're evil," so much more threatening than it would be coming from any other villain. We see the Psycho Rangers immediately prove this statement to be true in their first fight against the Rangers. Their threat is further demonstrated as after they disappear from the fight to talk to Astronema, they return to Earth on the offensive this time. Using the Rangers' communication devices to track them, they go on a spree of attacks throughout the city, trying to hunt them down. They manage to track down Zane and hold him hostage to draw out the Rangers to kill them once and for all. The Rangers manage to trick them using a diversion and successfully free Zane from his captivity, but the Psycho Rangers reappear before they can make their getaway. Even in this second fight, the Power Rangers are once again beaten mercilessly, with the Psycho Rangers almost killing them outright, until they are once again interrupted by Astronema, teleporting them back to the Dark Fortress. The last scenes of the Power Rangers in this episode are them beaten and afraid, recognizing the Psycho Rangers as a force to be reckoned with. We end the episode seeing the Psycho Rangers arguing with Astronema for pulling them back to the Dark Fortress when they were so close to wiping out the Rangers once and for all, to which Astronema gives no response except to scold them and remind them of their place in the fortress. It is later that she reveals to her ally Ecliptor that the Psycho Rangers draw their strength from the Dark Overlord Dark Spectre himself. and that the Psycho Rangers are a twofold weapon to both destroy the Power Rangers as well as weaken the Dark Spectre, allowing her to take his place and become the supreme leader. Thus, despite seeming like stock doppelganger characters, the Psycho Rangers introduce a lot of interesting complications to the story that reveal a lot about the characters, both the Power Rangers' vulnerabilities and the hidden machinations of Astronema against the Dark Spectre.
It's over for you, Rangers!
How does the full 6-part arc play out, and how does each Psycho finally go down? After this initial appearance of the Psycho Rangers, we see how the Power Rangers manage to actually deal with these powerful foes, and it involves one of the fatal flaws that prevents the Psycho Rangers from properly being able to take out their rivals: their inability to work together as a team. In the 33rd episode, A Rift in the Rangers, we see the female Rangers in the team begin to fight each other over perceived slights. Similarly, on the Psycho Rangers, Psycho Pink and Psycho Yellow plot to take out the Rangers together, without permission from Astronema. However, while the Rangers are able to resolve their issues between each other, Psycho Yellow betrays Psycho Pink, leaving her to be destroyed and forcing her to transform into her giant plant-like monster form to try to overwhelm them, to no avail. Psycho Pink thus becomes the first casualty of the Psycho Rangers, to the fury of Astronema and the relief of the Power Rangers. The next episode, 5 of a Kind, features the defeat of Psycho Blue, with TJ, the Blue Ranger, coming up with a plan to take advantage of each Psycho Ranger's obsession with their colored counterparts. They first try to have different colored Rangers fight different Psycho Rangers, though this plan is figured out by the Psycho Rangers quickly and countered. TJ instead comes up with the new plan, where every Ranger disguises themselves as the Blue Power Ranger to confuse Psycho Blue, which ultimately results in him reverting to his giant ice monster form that is dispatched quickly by the team. The next episode, Silence is Golden, almost ends with the destruction of the Psycho Rangers as a whole, with the remaining 3 Psycho Rangers being easily overwhelmed by the 6 Power Rangers. This forces the remaining survivors, Psycho Red, Psycho Yellow, and Psycho Black, to transform into their giant fire monster, giant insect, and giant rock monster forms. However, an attack by Psycho Black makes the Rangers realize that they have to retreat before they get sucked along with their Megazord into a space-time vortex. Meanwhile, this episode has the stakes grow more dire for Astronema, as Dark Spectre threatens her to find out the cause behind his mysterious loss of power, which, unknown to him, is caused by the exhaustive drain of maintaining the Psycho Rangers. The threat seemingly ends in episode 36, The Enemy Within, where the Power Rangers attempt to regain their lost Megazord, which was dragged into the vortex by the Psycho Rangers. However, it turned out to be a trap laid by the Psycho Rangers, with Psycho Yellow hiding within the Megazord as a virus, freezing the giant robot, while Psycho Red and Psycho Black attack them in their giant monster forms. However, growing tensions between Psycho Red and Astronema end with him completely ignoring her and his teammates' concerns, resulting in him attacking his own teammates and forcing them to fight for him. This ultimately gets him and his team killed off for good, or at least it seems. In the 38th episode, Mission in the Secret City, the Psycho Rangers are revealed to have survived as spirits, unable to harm anyone, much to their chagrin. The Rangers themselves are teleported to the mysterious secret city run by Astronema and her allies. While the Rangers themselves escape the city and Astronema hides the city away from them so that they may never find it again, the city plays a major part in the Psycho Rangers' return. The next episode, Ghosts in the Machine, is where we see Astronema introduce the data card technology, which allows her to transform living creatures into data cards, which she successfully uses on the Power Rangers. However, the spirits of the Psycho Rangers manage to use the technology to bring themselves back by creating data cards based on their spirits, and then using the data cards to give them physical bodies again. In their obsession to defeat the Power Rangers, they restore the Rangers to their physical form as well, but ultimately they lose the fight, which is their last appearance as the data cards left in Astronema's possession, who never uses them again to not arouse Dark Spectre's suspicion. In this full arc, we see how the Psycho Rangers developed their fearsome reputation, driving the Rangers to the brink of death numerous times. However, we're also introduced to their weaknesses as well, their inability to work as a team, which is what ultimately allowed the Rangers to defeat them. How does Psycho Pink alone survive into the next season and kill a Power Ranger? The data cards containing the Psycho Rangers eventually show up again, leading to a 2-episode crossover arc between Power Rangers in Space and Power Rangers Lost Galaxy. The episode to the 10th Power starts with Lost Galaxy villain Deviant purchasing 5 very familiar data cards from an alien merchant and bringing the Psycho Rangers back into their physical forms. Expecting them to be disruptive and tricky to control, he equips them all with shock collars that force them to listen to his commands. The Psycho Rangers prove to be just as dangerous and hard to fight for the Lost Galaxy Rangers as they were for the Space Rangers, leading to some Rangers being taken captive. However, the intervention of Andros, Red Space Ranger, allows Leo, the Red Galaxy Ranger, not to be taken by their forces. Together with the surviving Galaxy Rangers, they take the fight to the Psycho Rangers themselves, who are angered by the presence of Andros, the Red Space Ranger who defeated them. Soon, the rest of the Space Rangers show up as well, leading to the defeat and destruction of the Psycho Rangers by the combined forces of the Space Rangers and the Galaxy Rangers. However, unbeknownst to them, Psycho Pink survived and was rescued by Deviant at the end of the episode. In the next episode, The Power of Pink, Kendrix Morgan, the Pink Galaxy Ranger, learns of the Savage Sword, a powerful weapon. However, unknown to her, Psycho Pink had uploaded herself as a virus in the Galaxy Rangers systems and learned of the location of the Savage Sword through reading Kendrix's mind. Kendrix, along with Cassie, the Pink Space Ranger, chases Psycho Pink to the planet where the Savage Sword is kept, but they are too late as Psycho Pink successfully pulls out the sword and begins using it to attack them. The other Rangers try to get to them but are held back by Deviant and his forces. Psycho Pink successfully attacks Cassie and begins to absorb her energy using the sword, transforming into the giant monster version of herself. Against Cassie and the other Rangers' pleas, Kendrix runs into the storm created around the Savage Sword, hoping to get to Cassie's Morpher, which is the only thing that could save her life after Psycho Pink's attack. Kendrix ultimately sacrifices herself, destroying the Savage Sword, resulting in the shocking moment that was the first major on-screen death of a Power Ranger to be shown. Thus, even though Psycho Pink is destroyed, the fallout of the actions of the Psycho Ranger has resulted in the death of a comrade and friend. Where did the Psycho Rangers first appear in the Boom Studios comics, and what role do they play in Shattered Grid? Even beyond the live-action TV series, Psycho Rangers' influence can be seen in other Power Rangers-related media as well. In the official Boom Studios comic adaptation of the Power Rangers, we are introduced to Lord Drakon, an alternate universe version of Tommy Oliver, who never defected from Rita's side and joined the Power Rangers. Drakon's storyline leads to his appearance as the main villain of the Shattered Grid crossover arc in the comics, made to celebrate the series' 25th anniversary, while also coinciding with the 25th published issue of the comic book series. Drakon travels the multiverse, fighting and defeating Rangers across the timelines and claiming their morphers to add them to his Ranger Sentry army. Each morpher he steals from Rangers across the multiverse allows him to transfer their powers and abilities to grunts in his army, who act as his Ranger Sentries. This allows him to grow exponentially more powerful with each Ranger group he defeats, leading those who oppose him to resort to methods such as guerrilla warfare and espionage. The extent of his powers can be seen in issues 27 and 28 of the Boom Studios comic series. There, when he learns that the Power Rangers of Corinth, who we know as the ones from the series Power Rangers RPM, have developed technology to counteract his special weapons, the Dragon Cannons, Drakon himself decides to join the battlefield and fight the RPM Rangers, as well as other Rangers who travel to that universe to give their aid to Corinth. The Rangers opposing him risk their lives traveling to Corinth to recruit Dr. K, the technological genius behind the Power Rangers in this universe, and gain access to the technology that made the RPM Rangers immune to Drakon's Dragon Cannon. His arrival is heralded by the first appearance of the Psycho Rangers in this universe, who serve as commanders in his army. Echoing their first appearance in the franchise in Power Rangers in Space, they take part in the vicious beatdown of the Allied Power Rangers, who who are standing together with Dr. K and Corinth. Thus, we see what a threat Drakon is. He is implied not only to have defeated the Psycho Rangers by himself, but also to have bent their psychotic, violent personalities to his will, using them as tools for his own goals. The threat posed by the Psycho Rangers is also showcased pretty well, with the RPM Rangers and their allies overpowered by Drakon and his army, led by the Psycho Rangers and Drakon ultimately taking over Corinth. It is very intentional that this is how the Psycho Rangers are shown in the comic books, showcasing exactly the kind of threat they are, not only to the Space Rangers but also to any Rangers who get in their way. Though they only appear in this short section, they help signify exactly how powerful Drakon had become by this point in the story. The only weakness the Psycho Rangers had, their reliance on power drawn from the Dark Spectre in the original series, is completely gone here as they work as part of Drakon's army. This makes this version of the Psycho Rangers the most deadly by far that we have ever seen. These two issues thus sell the threat faced by Drakon and his forces very effectively. As with even the Psycho Rangers at his beck and call, Drakon has become a true threat that requires the combined forces of Rangers from across time and space to stop. Where does the Boom Comics give the Psycho Rangers their own full story, and their first shot at redemption? By the time of publication of Power Rangers the Psychopath, the reputation of the Psycho Rangers were set in stone as the vicious, violence-loving dark counterparts of the morally upright and righteous Power Rangers. It is this perception of the Psycho Rangers that writer Paul Allor and artist Giuseppe Cafaro attempt to subvert in their graphic novel, The Psychopath. Unlike the Shattered Grid crossover arc, where they had a cameo appearance to showcase how powerful Drakon had become and to properly set the stakes for the story, the Psychopath uses the reputation and characteristics of the Psycho Ranger as a starting point on a journey of redemption, growth, and second chances. Set after the events of Power Rangers in Space, we follow Astronema, now reverted to her original identity of Corone, the sister of the Red Ranger Andros. However, she finds her space colony on the planet KO-35 attacked by newly resurrected Psycho Rangers, led by the mysterious Psycho Green. To prevent any further harm, she leaves willingly with them and finds that Psycho Green, real name Trek, was originally buried on the surface of the moon a long while ago and dug his way out after centuries, and found the Psycho Ranger's data card, which allowed him to resurrect them once again. Now he used them to attack ancient outposts of Dark Spectre's cache of weaponry to continue Dark Spectre's work, despite the fact that Dark Spectre was defeated at the end of Power Rangers in Space. He attempts to revert Corone back into Astronema to aid him in the quest, only for Corone to reveal that Astronema is now a permanent part of her, and not a split personality anymore. Corone attempts to show the Psychos a new way of life, introducing them to music, movies, and other forms of culture, while also encouraging them to think for themselves and give themselves identities beyond simply Psycho Red or Psycho Pink. This caused some of the Psychos to distrust her, including Trek, while others warmed to her new way of life. In the meantime, Andros, Corone's brother, grows nervous after learning Corone left with the Psycho Rangers willingly, and searches for her and the Psycho Rangers by himself. When he ultimately confronts Corone, she reveals that she feels responsible for the way the Psycho Rangers became the violent, fear-mongering warriors they are, and wanted to help redeem them into better people, like how he believed in her and allowed her to be redeemed for her actions as Astronema, the Princess of Evil. The inbuilt bonds of loyalty between the Rangers convinced her that the Psycho Rangers had the potential to be redeemed, if only someone trusted and guided them as Andros had done for her. Paul Allor manages to draw a parallel between Corone and the Psycho Rangers as people who were made for a particularly violent life and purpose, only to find their own way of life after rejecting the binary code of the people attempting to control them. If even the Psycho Rangers, the most vicious and bloodthirsty of the Rangers' foes, can find purpose beyond the violence and bloodshed, then maybe anyone can. How are the Psycho Rangers referenced in modern Power Rangers? Despite not having a proper on-screen appearance in a modern Power Rangers show, the Psycho Rangers are still alluded to in a particular episode of Power Rangers Beast Morphers. In Making Bad, we see Evox, the villain of the series, and his underlings in the cyber dimension continue his search for a worthy opponent who faced the Rangers before in order to clone them and use them for his own plans. He does so by searching past records of villains the Rangers fought, which we see as archival footage from previous seasons, and the villains the Rangers fought in those seasons. One of the villains the group considers a candidate to be brought back into modern day is none other than Psycho Red, leader of the Psycho Rangers. They are shown to be in possession of his data card, which the Psycho Rangers had used once before to return from the dead. Psycho Red's fearsome nature and deadly reputation are all discussed as positive details on why he should be brought back. We see the Red Ranger from the Space Rangers struggling to keep up with Psycho Red as they fight in the archival footage. But the most notable thing the villains consider admirable is the Psycho Rangers' single-minded dedication to eradicating the Rangers. The inbuilt advantages each Psycho Ranger received also translated to an obsession with their respective colored counterparts, which were often psychotically murderous. However, as others point out, this very same single-minded obsession with killing the Red Ranger was ultimately what resulted in Psycho Red's downfall. We see archival footage of Psycho Red being overpowered by two Red Rangers and ultimately defeated, laying bare the weakness of the Psycho Rangers, which is that they were created to counter one specific Ranger in the team, their own color counterparts, rather than the whole team itself. Given their limitation of only being able to clone one person rather than the entire team of Psycho Rangers, Evox and his minions make the choice not to bring back Psycho Red. Though the Psycho Rangers don't make a proper appearance in the series itself, outside of archival footage of previous seasons, we can tell just how feared they are in the Power Rangers universe from how the villains talk about them. To get an idea of how feared and infamous they are, we see the villains thinking about bringing their creator, Astronema, back into existence. But even she is not considered as dangerous and effective in taking on the Rangers as the Psycho Rangers were. Just like with the Shattered Grid, even in the comics, the Psycho Rangers make only the briefest of appearances, but the single appearance tells us a lot both about the current villains as well as the Psycho Rangers' place in the Power Rangers villain gallery. The Psycho Rangers have become infamous enough to be one of the most famous examples of evil doppelgangers in science fiction fantasy TV shows. Their actions within the series warrant such an infamous reputation, with them being behind the only death of a Power Ranger to happen on screen. However, as we see in spin-off media like The Psychopath, they are also nuanced and complex enough to lead a story by themselves as protagonists. This duality of nuanced characterization and almost cartoonishly single-minded rivalry is what makes the Psycho Rangers such compelling characters to watch. Before you leave, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel, because there's a lot more coming and you don't want to miss what's next.